Hello everybody, apologies for the weird looking pages here. I was doing some notes recently, collecting information, family history, and just kind of getting some general information about how some of these Creek records worked. 1832, you had the Creek orphans. Well, in the 1860 census, there's a census of the 1832 Creek orphans. And 1832 was also the year of the Parson Abbott roll. So Creek orphan, you have Anna McKillop. That's my my great grandmother. Lister was female, Coweta, and I don't. Maybe her mother died because her father was still alive at that time. It was Henry Marshall. Her name was Annie or Anna Marshall. Okay, McKillop was her married name. So it also mentions Fish Pond, female, Ista Hartley, and the child, the orphan, would have been Waxy Harjo. I don't know if it's mine or not. You got Fish Pond. I don't know. There's like 4 Waxy Harjos at the same time in 1870 listed as soldiers that were Little Creeks. And 3 of them were 35, 1 was 45. Mine was the 35-year-old. So, so that actually means that would not have been mine. I'll explain that in a little bit here. Okay, I can scratch that one out, but I'm going to leave it there for the moment. Henry Marshall, male, maybe him, female. I would assume his wife, and in this case, probably 2 of his daughters, one of which would have been her for sure, I imagine at that time. Slaves, 2 of them, total 6 people. If she's an orphan and her mother died, then she probably, that one of the females was probably not the wife. So that could have been 3 daughters. But I don't know. Henry's mother was old Mrs. Marshall, or Hitzcarte, also Quita, okay. No males in the household, so she would have been the head of household. 2 females, one of which would have been her. The other probably would have been a daughter, or, you know, something. 3 slaves, total 5 people. Then there's Aquita also, Wax E Harjo, 1 male, 1 female, no slaves, 2 people. So this Aquita, I don't know. But the 1832 again. This is the confusing part. You got 1 guy that would have been alive at the time, and there's 3 other Waxy Harjos that wouldn't have been born yet. I'll explain that one in a little bit. So Swaklo, Nartawarki. That's probably my 4th great grandfather. Yeah, 4th great grandfather. 1 male, him. 1 female would be one of his wives. He had 2 wives simultaneous, but maybe not yet. Total 2 people in the household. I'm pretty sure this is my guy. I can't find any other records of my of that name, other than the records for my ancestor. And it would have been spelled a little bit differently, but there's 2 different spellings for my ancestor, like Natawake and Nidiwake. And this is Nartawarki. Okay. It seems almost obvious. So I'm pretty sure it's my guy. Not 100%, but I'm pretty sure it's my guy. There's Asilarnebi, right? It's supposed to be Asilanabi, right? Which is green leaf. I'm still mispronouncing that, I know. Abi Harjo. Well, I have a hope with Harjo, but that's probably not my guy. I don't know though. 2 males, 1 female, 3 people. There's a Talmachusa town, and there's a Hoboithlar Harjo with a G. Probably not my guy either, but I don't know. But the spelling is closer to what the name of my ancestor. There's others on that roll. I put more to come. That's not going to happen right now. My wife told me I was obsessed. She was right, and I just had to kind of move forward. Oh, here's my notes for the video on the, you know, Buthalihola and the Little Creeks. You've got 1863 Refugee Creek and Yuchi Indian Census. Okay. That has to do with the Little Creeks, I'm pretty sure. Arbika, or Abika, is how it's spelled. Hopoeth Laharjo, with a G again, but it's probably different. It's almost certainly a different guy than, you know. But the Apothri Harjo, that's probably my guy. Listed, you know, 1 man, which would have been himself, 3 women. I imagine his wife and maybe even his 2 daughters-in-law, Wiki and Ioki, I don't know for sure. It could be he had daughters too, I don't know. 6 boys, could easily be Jacob and siblings. No girls. That's the confusing part, because they had sisters. Jacob and William had sisters, okay, and brothers. There's also another Waxy Harjo listed. I don't know if it was Arbika or if I put a question mark for town and family. My apologies. But that's probably my guy right there. and this is probably the same family. I have to, again, have more solid information, but okay. 1870, Laurel Creek Abstract. It differentiates. Here's the thing: it does differentiate between the Creeks and freedmen. I know people are saying that the final Dawes rule was being racist and saying, oh yeah, it was just trying to persecute or disenfranchise the freedmen. It's like, no, I mean, whether it did or not, the fact is the freedmen were distinguished from the Creeks in earlier records. There's like, I think it's the 1868 record where it actually shows that, I mentioned this before, freedmen not getting paid their per capita payments, and because of their African ancestry. Whereas, so obviously there was, it wasn't like, okay, 1860 treaty happened, everyone's happy about it, and everything's fine and dandy. No, it wasn't quite the case. You had Indians by blood who did not want to give up their money to the freedmen, and that's obvious. But then there's another document showing that, them getting paid. So the people compiling these records are not the ones who are like, racist or whatever. But there is a distinction between the Creeks and the freedmen. So, like, Indians and freedmen were not considered one of the same. So anybody trying to say, oh, they were all the same, nah, it wasn't quite the case. And it's pretty obvious from an early period in time. I mean, several decades later, you get like 30 years later, you get the final, the Campbell Creek Rule that began in 1899, and I believe ended in 1902-ish within Creek Nation. That we're not talking about the other, tribes. But my great-grandma was born in 1900. So, anyways, just saying, the records make it very clear there's a distinction at that time, and just prior to that as well. And so I know there's different ideas floating around the internet, but yeah. Anyways, I'm going by the records. So number 512, I'm pretty sure that's my Hopieth Hijo. Okay, I have to look at my other records, but the number 512 sounds very familiar, and that's the only one that shows up on the transcription that I saw the other day. But I have to pull up the hard copy record. I'm like 99.99999% sure this is my guy. Just like I'm just as much sure that 216 is my Waxy Hard Hijo, the way it's spelled. Waxy Hijo, Hopieth Hijo. I don't know why I don't know who's writing this stuff down, but the spellings just kept changing all the time. Okay. See that Puthli Hajo Creek, age 56, in 1870. That means he would have been born around 1814. His claim was $5,550. His award was less than half that, $2,035. They were constantly screwing us over. Waxy Hajo Creek, age 35, in 1870. That means that he would have been born 1835, a year before the Trail of Tears began. So I mentioned earlier the other records. This means that that other Waxy Harjo was not like the 335-year-old Waxy Harjos that were all like soldiers, Laurel Creek soldiers. I think they were also listed as soldiers. Mine definitely was. I think they all were. I think all 4 Waxy Harjos. 3 were 35, 1 was 45. None of the 35-year-old guys are the one I mentioned in the record. Okay, so that this age, which creates this birth date approximately, pretty much separates that. Okay. Anyways, he was a soldier. Claim $4,640. Award $2,060. I think it's a 2. I wrote that down weird. Anyways, yeah, less than half. Again, this stuff. Again, 1904 Laurel Creek payroll sought to resolve some of this and to finalize it, but then again, it came back again in like 1950 something, I think. My great grandma has she collected some money as well, not just as a descendant of these individuals, but also on behalf of her maternal aunt who had no children. So you got Jacob Knight. Well, except he wasn't listed as Jacob Knight at the time. And on this particular transcription, I did not see him listed because the transcriptions are not always correct. As I mentioned in my last video, there's what you see on the internet, unless it's a scan or a microfilm, then it's not going to be the best, representation of that record. This is why having access to hard copy records is super important. I've seen other transcriptions or maybe even an actual copy that, I need double check, where he's listed as being Jacob, where he's a child, or maybe a 12-year-old or whatever. And he had no last name Knight. Now, his father was Knighty-Wake, okay, and his siblings all would have, I'm assuming based upon that they took their dad's, first half of his name and made that into a last name that was intelligible to the white man. But yeah. Anyways. Yeah, so sorry, I'm going to sidetrack in messages here. So now I'm kind of doing this freehand. I didn't actually pull this up my last video, my last take, but yeah, like I said, pay attention to the numbers next to the name. That'll tell you who you are dealing with. Okay. 1870 payroll of the 1832 Creek orphans. Okay, Coweta orphan, number 487, female, Anna McKillop. I put Marshall question mark because I know it's her. Do you know how I know that? Well, it's because these are her children. Albert McKillop, male. Female, listens Alvany. I don't know what that is. It's kind of weird. Male, B and J, period. I wrote that down on purpose. It's Benjamin. Male, Joseph, and of course McKillop and all McKillop, and then Thomas McKillop. Joseph also had a son named Thomas, I believe. I need to double check that, though. I think he had several children by his first marriage. Anyways, yeah, that's my great-great-grandfather. And that is Albert Pike McKillop. It doesn't have a P right there, but it's Albert Pike McKillop. He became an important person for Creek Nation. Anyways, yeah, that's the number of the orphan. That's the name of the orphan. These are the children, the heirs. Okay? Again, it actually lists orphan and then heirs. I just made this little line to distinguish. Then you got Arbika, the way they separate that. So orphan and heir. You have, I don't know if this is my guy. Actually, this probably is not, again, because I just kind of, here I'm going to do that, because I've already kind of isolated that my Waxy Harjo is not, he was not alive in 1832. So there's no way he would be one of the 1832 Creek orphans, unless he was older than 35 years old, which is possible. It's totally possible. Otherwise, if he was born in 1835 and he was a child in the Trail of Tears, he would have survived that horrible experience. And it's amazing that a baby or a 1-year-old, 2-year-old kid would survive that. So, along with the other Waxy Harjos that were 35 years old in 1870, okay? But anyways, so yeah, he probably wasn't Arbika. These two people, the Siwaniye and the Hisar Hoke, if I'm pronouncing those horribly, I'm sure. These are females. These probably would have been either like a mother and a grandmother or 2 grandmothers. I don't know. Which actually could still be relevant. Maybe I shouldn't cross it out. Maybe his parents were orphans. Maybe my Waxy Harjo's parents were. I don't know. Anyways, there's Fish Pond. There's a Waxy Harjo there. There's so there's 2 females and there's a male, Issa Hartley, and then a female, Tihuichi. I'm getting that wrong. Anyways, Waxy Harjo is listed as heir to both of them. And then Fitdadig Harjo would have been another male that would have been heir to her. So that could have been like a cousin of his. I don't know. Again, this is where other records are going to be very important to verify all this stuff, to verify the relationships between people. Okay. We get to the, again, I kind of did this weird. I kind of did this and this and this. I should have done this one first. 1867 Creek Orphan Census. Fish Pond again. Nahui Fihuichi, Easter Hartley, Waxy Harjo, and it's like the same information for Fish Pond, Arbika, and Coweta. Okay, except right here it mentions Joseph first, and it mentions Albert, then Alvany. It doesn't mention I don't think it mentioned the gender of these. It had to have, I just must have ignored that. Stupid me. Alvin E. Thomas Muskogee, McKillop, and Benjamin. Okay. Let's get to the 1883 Creek Orphan. I don't even know what I wrote right here. I don't know what it is. I can't even read my own writing there. Anyways, Coeta, Anna McKillop. I probably should say payroll, but it looks like Parroll. Anyways, Joseph McKillop mentions him as being 29 at that time. That sounds about, hold on a second. So 63 would have been, he would have been 9. I don't know how accurate that is, because I think he was born on 1855. It would have been close, but not exactly the same. The records are, when you go between the Campbell Creek roll, the 1900 census of the Creek population, you know, and you look at other records, you're going to find that the ages do not always line up exactly. They're off by a couple years, maybe even as much as 5 years. It's kind of ridiculous, actually. I think his tombstone says 1855 as his birth year. And other records indicate that as well. But anyways, 29 years old, Alvin McKillop, 13. Albert Pike, who signed for everybody. Okay, 25. Benjamin, 32. So he's the oldest one. So Alvin would not have been one of the children. He would have been one of the heirs. So he would have been a child of one of the siblings. I don't know which one. I have to double check that. Again, I also did the fish pond thing with Waxy Harjo, and there's also a Harper and Trimsey and Pahosi Harjo, which again, I don't know if I'm related to them or not. It does mention that this Waxy Harjo is dead at 1883. Yeah, so if he's like 54, I'll do some math on that one. This is probably, again, that 45-year-old Waxy Harjo on the other record I mentioned, or on the soldier list. So, yeah, so I have to probably rule all these guys out here. But writing it down and proving this person to not be your ancestor is also just as important as proving someone else to be your ancestor who had the same name. That way you can distinguish these things. I can't tell you how many of my cousins go on Ancestry.com and they make their own files, and I know who it is, you know, based upon the last name. They don't always put their full name. I put my full name usually, but other people, you know, put down like some weird mix mash of names for their profile. And what happens is like they just simply accept every single record. Click, 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 click. And it's like, no, I'm sorry. My great-grandmother Effie she was never in Scotland. She never received any lands in Scotland. Okay, like her paternal line great-grandfather came from Scotland, but she had herself had never probably left Oklahoma. Ever, probably. So, yeah, you're going to find records on the internet that just don't add up to the reality of what happened. My stepmom was helping me find some ancestry on my real mom's, dad's side of the family. And some of her research was also incorrect on Ancestry. She was accepting certain records that were, unfortunately, if you didn't know better, it'd be easy to accept. But because I know a few specific facts, I'm able to isolate which records are not referring to my mom's paternal grandmother. Okay. So yeah. That's important to be able to do, is to actually really be able to isolate, differentiate between these people. So it's good I did this, because as I'm doing this video, I'm realizing certain things about this individual and why he's probably not my guy. Okay. Like I said, the number next to the name is why I already know that one of the 35-year-olds was mine. So, yeah, it's a fun part about Indian genealogy. You have no birth certificates back then, no marriage records, no death certificates, like that pretty much becomes the death certificate de facto. Okay. Like the age of the person, well, that becomes the birth certificate. This becomes the birth certificate pretty much when it comes to some of these records, because you just don't have any state birth records for the Indian population who were not American citizens at the time. By default, that also means that the Creek freedmen were not U.S. citizens at the time. So, yeah, it's really a interesting thing. Definitely a lot to think about. But yeah, like I know these guys are my guys from Coweta. Just like I know some of those Arbika people are probably mine. Not these Arbika people here, but on the other page. But yeah, I need to go back to my mom's house, get all those records, bring them back to where I'm at, and then just better organize all that stuff, and then do some better videos on that. I can show you guys some of the microfilms I got from Oklahoma City, some of the microfilms I got from, from Okmulgee, or just some Xeroxes that they took for me while I was there, because, again, I held some actual primary source records when I was there. But anyways, oh man, I'm getting tired. I better go clean the bedroom before the wife gets back from her late night shift, because then she'll get on me if I don't. Our beautiful, wonderful 3-year-old fell asleep on the couch, and he tore that room up. Little brat. Love that kid, but but he's a brat. 3.5 years old. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. If you have any other information, and like I said in my last video, please feel free to let me know if there's any websites that have like PDF files of any of these records. It's really, really, really crucial that we have access to these things. If you want to do your family history, if you want to establish your citizenship by blood in the tribe, you know, and this same process doesn't just apply to Creek Nation. This applies to Cherokee Nation, I'm sure, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Seminole Nation of Oklahoma. Like, this is how you're going to verify. And heck, even like there's even certain roles for like the Porch Band of Creek Indians, and probably other bands that stayed behind, or at least didn't make it maybe as far as Oklahoma, that are still established where they're at. Like there are definitely roles for other bands and other tribes. And but when it comes to the 5 civilized tribes in Oklahoma specifically, this same process is going to be relevant, at least when it comes to the Final Dawes roll and the Campbell Creek roll. I don't know. I know there's definitely records regarding like Civil War records and rolls and census records. So if you're part of a different tribe, or you're trying to find out, you know, if you're multiple tribes, delve into that. But this is how you do Indian genealogy. There's no other way to do it beyond a certain point. And this is part of the reason why, definitely one of the reasons why Creek Nation will not accept anybody into the tribe unless they're a citizen by blood on the final Dawes roll, is because this is what the records start looking like. It's just a name, a gender, a number, who they're an heir to, and that sort of thing. Or in some cases, what household they belong, you know, what household they're living in. Like, if you didn't know better, you'd look at the 1882 Creek census of Greenleaf and think that my great-great-great-grandmother, had to pause and verify that, great-great-great-grandmother Martha was like married to Hadolaguchi Harjo. Okay, she was in his household. I'm assuming that was probably her brother. I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that was probably a brother. On the same year, you have her listed also at Arbika, and she's in the household of Jacob Knight, and she's listed as Martha Knight. So, not Martha Harjo, not Martha something else, just, you know, and not just Martha alone at that point, but Martha Knight, because she was married to Jacob Knight. So, yeah. But you would think that Hadolaguchi Harjo was her husband, because, you know, if he didn't have access to the Campbell Creek roll and any kind of other records, you would assume that sort of thing. I mean, Buddy Cox kind of did when we were talking back in 2011 at Okmulgee. I told him, no, that's actually not her husband because this guy on Arbika role, well, that's the husband. She's in that house. So unless you switch husbands or something like that, which is probably not the case, but you know, I would hope not. But no, it's yeah, that was probably her brother, or if not a brother, then some other relative. I'm assuming, but it's hard to tell sometimes because these roles don't actually state the relationship of the head of household to the people in the household. Whereas with census records, like after 1900, you see, you know, that type of thing very clearly. So, anyways, so that's kind of why you're not going to be able to. You can trace back to some of these people, but if some of them are not on the final Dawes roll, you're not getting citizenship in the tribe, like guaranteed. So you have to make sure that, you know, and you trace back to these people, especially going even further back, people that were you know, dead in 1832 who left children behind. Like, you can trace back to them, but even if you trace back to that person and then split off from the tribe and went somewhere else, went to, like, I don't know, Canada or something, and then left a bunch of kids there and a very traceable line of descent, you're still not getting citizenship of the tribe because, you know, it's still kind of hard to verify, and none of those descendants would have actually been, hypothetically speaking, citizens of the tribe at the time of the final rolls. So, but it's because of stuff like this. It's because of that you're not going to be, that you have to you go back to the Campbell Creek roll, which again is the basis of the final Dawes roll. So anyways, I hope this is helpful. Please let me know what you think. And I look forward to the next video. I'll talk to you later. Bye.